Hey, Core Middle School students, families, leaders, Pastor Craig here. What does this and this box have to do with what we're going to be talking about starting this week? Let's find out. All right, so today we're going to be starting a new series on studying the Bible. And this comes about because leaders have said that you guys as students have expressed interest, which I'm very impressed and happy with, about wanting to study the Bible, but you're not exactly sure how or how to go about doing it and what does it mean and that kind of stuff. And it can be a little bit overwhelming. And I got to admit to you that thinking about what we're going to do to launch things today, there are so many things that we could think about and do, but I want to kind of compare it to this. And so I showed you at the very beginning, just a second ago, you have this, which we'll talk about here in a sec, and you have this. And what this is a box, and as you can tell, it's from basketball shoes from when I was in college, and I don't even remember what kind they were, Air Force Lows. And this box is kind of beat up because it's been with me ever since college. But the thing is that it is filled, if I can even open the whole thing, with all kinds of cards and letters and pictures of Mama Maart and myself from when we were in college and dating and that kind of thing. And I mean, there's a whole bunch in here. This is a big box filled. And the reason that I show it to you today and that I want to talk about it is because I value these. It came at a time when I was getting to know who Joanna was or is, and the times that we were apart, because she's a year older than me, so yeah, she's a cougar. And when I was a senior in college, she was already home back in Pennsylvania. The college that I was at was in Minnesota. And we would call on Sunday nights, and because of how expensive things were back then, I would call one Sunday, and then she would call the next Sunday. But in between, we would write literal letters, and I loved them. I valued them because I valued the messenger. I valued the effort put into what was going to be happening when I received the letter. It was like a highlight of my week as we were apart and engaged most of that time. I valued it. And the reason that I bring that up, and if you want to read some of these, I'm not going to let you, but I could let you maybe take a look at least some of the pictures or whatever it might be, if you ask nicely. But I want to compare that to studying the Bible, because there's all kinds of techniques, all kinds of things that we could do. However, it's got to start with a passion and a desire to want to get to know who God is. Because if we really don't want to get to know who God is, it's not going to matter. It's just going to be like any other topic that you are not interested in that you have to study. And I don't want that to be the case. If you are saved from your sin, you are not just a disciple of Jesus, a believer, but you are a follower. There is an assumption along with that we are going to get to know God, continue to get to know God. And so studying the Bible, the best method is the desire. I want to get to know God. And so I'm going to put the effort in. I'm going to value it. And so God wrote us a letter. Literally, the 66 books of the Bible that we have is God's preserved word, his absolute truth for us. And it's the one story of his, the story of redemption, the story of how he loved us so much that he wanted to provide the only way for salvation for us. And so that's what it's got to start with. And the second thing that I want to emphasize before we get into one practical thing that's going to launch us forward, as I said, is we got to keep in mind the big picture of the Bible, God's one story of redemption. But the second part of it is this, that God has always wanted a special people in a special place. And so Adam and Eve were created perfect in the garden with God, walking with God, sharing with God, having lunch with God, playing golf with God, whatever they did back then. But then sin entered, and it broke that relationship purity. There was the curse, and they were kicked out of the garden. And not long after that, things were so bad that God had to send a flood to destroy people. But his plan was always, remember, a special people in a special place. So then he brings up Abraham to be the father of his chosen people, the Jews, the children of Israel. And so a special people group to be in a special place, the promised land, the land of Israel, the actual physical place that is the same today. And then the story goes on, and there's all kinds of other things that happen, and Jesus comes on the scene, and he talks about, I'm going to go and prepare a place for you. So if you become a Christian, if you become a follower of Christ, you will get to be with me and my Father in heaven. So God right now is preparing a place for his special people. And the special people is anybody who chooses to accept Jesus Christ as the Savior of their sin. And with those things in mind, I want to keep it super simple. We can move forward. Number one, I have the desire and the passion. I want to get to know God. Not information about the Bible, but to get to know the God of the Bible and how personal he is and how much he loves me and cares for me. And he has the plan for redemption for me and for everybody. And I understand that God has always wanted a special people in a special place. So with that in mind, there's really not a wrong way to study the Bible. And so for our purposes, we're going to be looking at the book of Philippians because Pastor George, over the next series of weeks into the summer, is going to be teaching through the book of Philippians. So I thought, hey, it'd be cool to match up what we're going to do for the next couple weeks because we're probably going to be ending this the way that we're going to be doing this normally through the end of May, but I still want you to have the skills and the things set for moving forward with your group and on your own, depending on what it is. And so I want to have us look at something. If I can pull it up on this screen. Oh yeah, I forgot that was there. Had no idea. How did that get there? I have no idea how that got there. So here's this picture. This picture is symbolizing what the book of Philippians is all about. And so the book of Philippians, based on this picture, think of the theme, happily humble. That's the message of Philippians. And with that in mind, we look at, so here's a bull who is humming and flipping ends. So he's flipping ends, so for Philippians, and he's happy, he's humming, and he's got this tattoo that's EMFs. I can't really see it too well. It's Eat More Fish, kind of a play on the Eat More Chicken thing from Chick-fil-A. But so he's a happy bull. So he's happily humble as he's flipping ends. That's the big picture of what's going on in Philippians. And you also got to keep in mind that Philippians is a literal letter that God, through Paul, wrote to the church in the city of Philippi, a literal city, a literal church in that city, to give instructions, to encourage, and to help them to find contentment and being joyfully humble in all the circumstances that they were in. Because they were in difficult circumstances, like we're in difficult circumstances right now that we didn't choose, but this is where we are. So we can complain and grumble about it and that kind of stuff, or we can choose to make the most of it, and God, help us learn what you want us to learn. And so that's the big idea of Philippians. And before we get into a bunch of different techniques and things like that I want to be able to recommend, I'm just going to basically end with this. I want you to take this assignment. Philippians is 4 chapters, just barely longer than the book of Titus. And what I would love for you to do, your assignment is to read the book of Philippians, because it is one letter, not 4 separate letters, but one letter. And so keep in mind that back when they wrote things, they wrote everything on one scroll. There was not the chapters and verses and all that kind of stuff that were put in later. So read the whole book, or you could listen to it, whether you do it digitally or in person with a hard copy. I prefer that for sure, but as long as you're getting into it and think of the whole thing. Otherwise, it would be like me taking one of these letters that I have from Mama Maart and taking it, and here's one that's a couple pages, and just reading the bottom paragraph. There'd be a lot of questions like, what do you mean? There's something before it and something after it on the second page, but just reading the bottom paragraph on page 1 wouldn't make any sense. So we can't do that when studying the Bible. We need to read that book. And so this week, with all stuff going on, and I get that, but we all can make the time for what's a priority to read the book of Philippians and be ready to talk about it together with your group. And as we have this theme through the book of Philippians to be happily humble or joyfully humble, you're going to see that all the way through the book. And as you read, if you don't understand things, that's perfect. God doesn't want us, got to figure it out. I know exactly what it is without having any kind of questions at all. Every time I read, it seems like there's more questions, or what does that word mean, or why is that there? what is the context of this? What does history have to say? What was going on in the culture and stuff like that? But guys, read it with the desire to, I want to get to know God. God is talking to me. It's his love letter to me. Just like these are all my love letters from Mama Maart, and I appreciate them and I love them. So that's what it's going to be. Short and sweet today with an assignment to do this. So guys, please don't go for the next couple weeks without doing this. And it's a lot more fun to do it together. So ask your family if this can be family night. Ask your small group. Can we read it together? Can we do something together? Or do it on your own? So guys, I love you and I care for you. And I want this to be something that launches us forward with getting to know God, studying his love letter to us, which is his word. And so let's get into this. And I look forward to hearing all the things that are going to be happening both with just what we discover with it. And so, guys, I can't wait to see you in person. My heart really aches, and I want to see everybody together. Who knows what's going to happen, but we're going to stay flexible, we're going to stay hopeful, and we're going to get things done. So I love you. Talk to you later.